Hey family of God, thanks for watching this video. I had to make this testimony. This is a funny story that happened yesterday. And man, it was goofy and kind of a weird little experience, but it was also really sovereign and just like a beautiful little blessing from God. My wife and I moved into the neighborhood that we're in really intentionally to do ministry. We are doing Whole Heart Ministries, doing discipleship, and then eventually we're going to plant a house church out of our home. And we're just trying to get to know the neighborhood. And there's been kind of this paradoxical experience that we've had where some people are really open, and there's a few people, especially very close by us, that are really open, but a lot of people are a little bit more cautious, especially with COVID going on and kind of the demographic of our neighborhood. Ishan, my wife, and I are actually minorities in our neighborhood. I am Caucasian and Latino, white and Latino. Ishan is Chinese, Malaysian, American, and the majority of our community is African American, and just for different reasons, some of them are a little bit more closed off, but God's been opening doors. Recently, I was just praying. I was like, Lord, please help us to connect even more with our neighbors. And the other day, I was walking around and just striking up conversations with people and talking a little bit about Jesus and kind of what we do, and had like 5 good conversations. And then yesterday, this happened. Yesterday I walked out on kind of like our side door. Our house has 3 doors. So there's one in the front and there's 2 on the side. There's like a middle side door and a back side door. So I walked out on our middle side door because we had a package, and I opened the door and I went out to pick up this package. It was a pretty big package. And as I go out there, I see this little woman, this little older woman kind of like walking across the street, like coming into our yard. And I was like, I think we had met her before. I think she's the neighbor that lives directly across the street from our house. Before Christmas, about 2 months ago, my wife and I had gone over to her house with a plate of cookies. My wife made a bunch of cookies with some of our other neighborhood friends, and we just went around and passed them out and just shared God's love with people and got to know a few people. So we had gone over to her house just before Christmas, and we met her very briefly and just gave her this plate of cookies and just kind of blessed her, and that was it. And haven't seen her since then. She's an older woman. We get the feeling that she usually stays in her house. She lives with her son. But I see her like walking across the street, like coming into our little side lawn. And I'm like, hey, is that Miss So-and-so? I'm like, we haven't seen you for a little bit. And she's like, oh, hey. And I like see her, and she like keeps walking across our lawn, like toward my house, like toward the back side door, while I'm out on the porch of the middle side door. And it's our garbages are over there, and she had something in her hand. Our garbage and recycling bin are over there. So I'm like, maybe she's going to throw something away. And so I just turn back to like grab my package. I'm like, she's throwing something away in our garbage cans, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I look back at her, and she's opening like the back door, like the screen. And I'm like, her name's Miss Julie. I'm like, Miss Julie, are you at the right house? Is everything okay? Her house is across the street, and we have a red brick house, and she has a red brick house, and she's a little bit older. And I'm like, is she confused? Is she forgetful? What's going on with her? And she says something like, no, I'm coming to visit you. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And I'm just like, Lord, I'm just gonna roll with it because I think you're doing something here. So I just like leave the package on the door, didn't even pull it in, and I just close the door and I go to the back door because it's locked, but she's like trying to open it. So I go to the back door and I just unlock the back door, and I'm like, hey, welcome, come in. And she just like comes in, and she's just like looking around our house, and I'm like, you want to sit down? And so she just comes into the living room and sits down like she's been in the house 100 times before. Have never had a conversation with her except that moment when we handed her the plate of cookies, and she hardly even talked. And she just sits down, and we just start talking, and I'm just like, okay, Jesus brought this woman into my house. Let's talk. So I just sit down. I'm like, how are you? how have things been going? How's your son? And she starts sharing a little bit about her life, and I think she is struggling with a little bit of dementia and a little bit of memory loss, and so a couple things weren't quite clicking. And as I was asking her questions, it was hard for her to remember some certain things, but she is remembering quite a bit. It's not any kind of severe dementia or anything. There's just a little bit of loss there. And so she and I talked in my living room for about 40 minutes. And that is one of the first like older folks, and one of the first, just older African American ladies that we've had in our home. And it was really strange and really unexpected, but it was beautiful. And we just shared about our lives and just kind of built a friendship a little bit. I learned a lot about where she grew up and kind of what she came out of, and shared with her about what we're doing and just about our ministry, and found out that she's Jehovah's Witness. And so there's a lot that's there. Didn't quite go into all that, but talked just a little bit about it and just got to love on her. And then it was 5:30 at that point, and we were about to go to a prayer meeting at 6. And so I was like, I'm sorry, Miss Julie, but I gotta get going. Thank you so much for coming over. Let's spend time again soon. And she's like, okay. And she got up, and she had a little Mountain Dew with her that I'd put in the fridge. So I grabbed that and I walked her out, and I just gave her my arm. And I got to give her my arm and just walk her over to her home, and all the way to her back door. And her son opened the door, and he looked pretty surprised to see me like escorting her home. It was really, really special. Yeah. And I wondered, like, I'm like, man, how many interactions has she had like this, with a young man, a young white man, with someone in our neighborhood, where she was just invited into their home like that. I don't know how much she understood, and I don't know how much I really understood about what she was thinking or her plan, but I knew that God was doing something in those moments, and it was really, really special. And I called my wife. I'm like, you will not believe, Miss Julie just came over, and we talked for like 40 minutes. She was out, Ishan was out grabbing groceries, but it was so good. And it just like the Lord just planted this little seed and just like spoke to me in this moment. And he's like, Samuel, I can open any door I want to. I can bring any person I want to into your home. So prepare yourself and like fling the doors wide, because I'm going to make so many connections in this neighborhood, and it's going to be unprecedented the way that people's hearts open up to you and your wife, because you're here for my gospel. So thanks for watching. Had to share it. So excited for beautiful and even funny things God's doing in this neighborhood. Maybe there's someone that the Lord's been calling you to, or there's an area the Lord's been calling you to. Believe that God can open the doors. It says in the scripture, originally in Isaiah, I believe it's chapter 22, and then in Revelation, I believe it's chapter 2, it says Jesus opens the doors that no one can shut. Jesus opens the doors that no one can shut. So pray for open doors in this season, and pray that God will connect you, maybe in funny ways and unexpected ways, with the people around you that he wants you to minister to. Thank you all so much for watching.